With massive changes to quest rewards, the party system, item drop rates, and more, players can expect an all-new Vagrant leveling experience in Flyff universe. Hey everyone, I'm Blukey, and today we'll be taking a look at the different paths a player may take on the way to obtaining their first job class. The beginning of a character's journey in Flyff starts with the base of all classes, the Vagrant. Leveling as a Vagrant acts as an introductory experience, guiding players through the mechanics of the game. Once a character reaches level 15, it stops gaining experience and can then embark on the quest to take a first job. For new players, the journey to receiving their character's first job quest will round out the base game knowledge needed to progress and pique their interest for what's to come. Flyff universe has new mechanics to explore in the starting area, but some veteran players will still likely skip the scenic route for this tutorial-esque section of the game. Whether new or returning Flyff players, all players will need to complete the Vagrant experience to explore the rest of what Flyff has to offer. When loading up the game for the first time, some will look to pick up every quest, explore every nook and cranny, hunt down giants old and new, and generally absorb everything there is to see on the Flyff continent. Others will focus on the key optimizations to get their characters from level 1 to 15 as quickly as possible. In collecting data for this video, I've gone through the initial 1 to 15 experience twice, once from the perspective of someone completing every storyline quest, and another from the perspective of a player preferring to grind their way to 15. From the two perspectives, I've noted the key choices that may affect your leveling experience, including some optimizations that could make a significant difference over the course of a player's journey. Let's take a look at the different choices a player can make for their character that will change their Vagrant leveling experience. For players hoping to rush ahead to level 15, the biggest factor between gaining or losing time to the grind will be whether they choose to complete the quests along the way or focus on killing masker pets. Along my first journey as a Vagrant, I took on every available quest from level 1 until my character hit level 15. If there was a quest I knew became available, I went back to town and picked it up. All of these quests reward experience. Some of them reward penya, consumables like food and potions, and a few of the core story quests even reward players with permanently unlocked additional inventory space. Not all quests were created equally in terms of how effective they are per time spent, however. For players who want to be immersed in the game, exhaust all of the NPC dialogue, and generally complete the available content, it makes sense to take the time to speak to everyone. Check out the shops, take a look through the upgrade mechanics at Bobaku, and buy a collector to start making money from breaking down collector monsters. The moments at the start of a new game are precious, and taking the time to appreciate all a game has to offer can build the foundation for a beautiful game experience. For those that have goals more aligned to level progression and gear, getting to 15 quickly will be imperative to maintaining an edge over other players. Not all quests are efficient to complete on the way to 15. From my experience in 2 playthroughs as a Vagrant, there are 2 quest lines I believe every player should complete simply from the sheer value the quests provide in experience and item rewards. First, let's cover the introductory quest line. The first quest line players receive in the game comes from the general store vendor Louis. The quest guides players to learn the basics of how to buy items from vendors and initiate basic combat. The entire quest line takes about 12 minutes to complete and will advance a character from level 1 to 4 or 5 depending on the number of monsters slain during the quest. In addition to the high experience rewards, the final reward of the quest line grants characters 50 biscuits and a choice of either 50 mana refreshers or 50 vital drinks. Food and vital drinks were critical in my playthroughs to maintain a consistent grind without having to frequently sit and rest to regain health and FP. Without outside interference, players have absolutely no way of earning the required penya to afford that many consumables by level 4 purely through grinding. I highly recommend that all players, regardless of preferred playstyle, complete the introductory questline, which should allow players to stay out into the field until nearly level 10. The collection quest for Leywolf drops in the level 12 to 15 area is the second questline I recommend all players complete. Players will need to collect 4 of the quest items, which drop from Leywolves whether the quest is active or not. At level 13, players have likely already begun to fight small ley wolves, and should be able to collect the 4 needed slains before they reach level 14. Levels 13 to 15 begin to take a bit longer than previous levels, and the boost from this quest that players will naturally complete by grinding can cover enough experience to skip a third of level 13. Reviewing the best quests to complete, you'll notice that the quests I highlighted have a large level gap between them. In the first playthrough focused on questing, I completed 13 quests, but took a total of 2 hours and 40 minutes making it to 15. My second playthrough only focused on the efficient quests, with the remaining energy put into grinding monsters for experience. In total, the grinding method was much faster, finishing the level 1 to 15 Vagrant experience in 1 hour and 45 minutes. Each playthrough used the same stat and skill builds and used the same strategy, with only the main difference being quests versus grinding. Times will vary once other factors are considered, like how playing in a full party will grant significantly more experience. Also consider that at launch, the beginner Massacre Pet areas may be very crowded, making it difficult to find monsters available to fight. With less monsters, questing becomes more efficient for quests focusing on item pickups rather than booty from Massacre Pets. Despite everything mentioned, if a player wants to make it to level 15 as quickly as possible, I recommend they focus on the grind. A focus on grinding means defeating monsters for experience without stopping for as long as possible. The more a player prepares in town, the longer they can stay outside to fight. The experience of grinding mostly stays the same for a player's time as a Vagrant. Their character will attack an enemy, use skills, restore health and FP with consumables, and collect loot. Despite minimal changes in strategy over the first 15 levels of grinding, everything a player spends time to prepare for seems to have an exponential return on investment. After completing the first job change quest at level 15 in Flyff universe, characters automatically have their skill points reset for the player to reallocate into their new job skills. By resetting skill points at level 15, players can feel empowered to utilize the Vagrant skills while leveling, and these skills are very worthwhile. The skills granted to Vagrants are physical skills that consume FP as a resource. To restore FP, players can have their characters rest by sitting down or utilize vital drink consumables. The main factor in how a player will interact with their skill points as a Vagrant ties directly into how deep their FP pool is and how quickly they can recover FP during battle. For me, both questing and grinding returned around the same amount of pena, meaning each method affords players the same number of vital drinks to be purchased. Players will want to stock up on enough consumables to use a vital drink whenever their FP runs out. The key to maximizing the number of skills a player can use in an encounter will correlate to the character's maximum FP. Traditionally in Flyff PC, players allocated every stat point during the Vagrant experience into strength. Players weren't using skills, so the health and FP generation from stamina lacked significant value. During my second Vagrant playthrough focused on grinding, I found the Battle Shield, which grants +1 to all stats. To tell you that I was surprised to see how much value was added from a single point of stamina would be an understatement. FP generation went up dramatically after equipping the Battle Shield, allowing my character to utilize skills more frequently. Additional testing could help drive a solid conclusion, but it's fair to say that stamina investment could have serious value on the way to level 15. We've discussed a bit about skills and how stamina and FP play a role in their use, but now let's take a deeper look at how I most effectively used Vagrant skills. The first Vagrant skill, Clean Hit, is a low-cost opening skill that can be used repeatedly from the action bar or as a starting skill on the action slot. It's a slow-moving, high-damage attack that hits one time. At the start of a Vagrant's journey, Clean Hit will be the skill used to plow through enemies quickly at a low cost of FP. Once hitting level 5, Vagrants gain their next skill, Flurry. Flurry costs a bit more, but moves quickly and can be placed in the second, third, and fourth action slots. Because Flurry is a middle tier combo skill, it cannot be used from the action bar, but it works better as a combo skill anyway. After unlocking the second Vagrant skill, most players will now have all the skills they need until level 15. In fact, with testing skills, I found that the most efficient way to level skills as a Vagrant was to level Clean Hit to max and Flurry to 6. These calculations assume players are using the buffs provided by the buff pang. Reviewing the skill pane, it can be observed that after reaching level 6 for Flurry, the cost of using the skill jumps from 12 FP to 15. The third skill costs a whopping 30 FP. By the time a player reaches max on Clean Hit and level 6 on Flurry, with maximum strength investment, a Vagrant will have just at or above the 46 FP required to use an action slot combo of 1 Clean Hit and 3 casts of Flurry. FP scaling slows down enough at this point that the use of any additional skill points causes a decrease in effective damage. The third skill is often completely unnecessary, as the damage output from an action slot attack with the mentioned setup will kill or leave enemies with a single auto attack of remaining health. These calculations could change with variations in stat allocation by using additional stamina instead of strength. Perhaps the Vagrant build could be further optimized, but with this setup, players can quickly and effectively make their way to level 15. Another important factor to consider while leveling are the gear options available to the player. The amount of loot from the Masker Pets players face as a Vagrant has decreased in Flyff universe. The general drop rate for Pena and items feels very low, but the limited amount of loot players do receive will feel special. During my Vagrant playthroughs, I rarely received items as loot. Sometimes common items dropped that provided an immediate boost for an equipment slot that hadn't been updated in a while. But the most noticeable change to drops in the 1 to 15 level range was the massive increase in uncommon and green item drops. Players can expect that during their Vagrant journey, they will find uncommon or better items that provide steep power boosts. The drop rate was very high enough, in my experience, that by the time my character reached level 15, they had found nearly one of every first job uncommon item and at least one uncommon shield. Both runs even dropped a piece of jewelry, with the first run providing a vigor ring and the second a Dimmel earring. The boost in uncommon items, especially those for first job classes, allows players participating in a party to plan out and share loot for level 15 and beyond. Those sticking to solo play will have more lucrative items to sell to vendors or other players. Luck and drops will vary from player to player, so having backup strategies in the case of poor drops will allow a player to bridge the gap until they find better equipment or reach level 15. If no uncommon or better weapons drop, I noticed in my runs that the common axes, like the Rodney axe, provides a significant power boost for grinding. Axes are slower for auto-attacking, but have a high damage range, making them ideal for builds that rely on skill use, which players will do plenty of as a Vagrant. Utilizing the drops players have at their disposal can help minimize some of the gap between the lucky and unlucky. Even minor upgrades to defense through updating armor and shields gave powerful results in the staying power while grinding. The boost defense gives at the Vagrant level ranges is so powerful, I believe if players don't have the NPC gear for their level from drops by the time they can upgrade, players should go back to town and buy that new armor. As a small tip to save time, remember to utilize town Blinkwings. Enjoy the time you have as a Vagrant. After only 15 short levels, the world opens up to players and soon they'll be off to higher adventures. Joining the wave of players rushing to higher levels will be tempting, and for some, it's the right path. But consider smelling the roses, taking a look for hidden secrets, and of course, saving puppy Yorn. Thank you to everyone watching this far. It was interesting to review the different paths players will take on their way to reaching their first job. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe so I know to keep making content like this. Leave a comment with suggestions or topics you want to hear about, and I'll see you in the next one.